The one kind of relationship that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy is the trauma bonded relationship. This is something that develops in your childhood, but then gets triggered when you get into a relationship with someone who's emotionally abusive towards you. It's the giving of immense love and then withholding it, and then giving it back and withholding it. And this pattern creates a trauma bond. So instead of falling in love with your partner, you are now bonded through traumatic experiences. The problem here is that it's very hard to tell the difference between falling in love and being trauma bonded. Because with trauma bond, you're in a constant high and low. So when you're in that high and you guys have made up, or you're back in his or her presence, and you're back in their arms, and everything feels right again, and that high and that oxytocin release that you feel in your brain makes you feel like this is the only kind of love you need to survive. This is it. This is your only one. So you're almost hooked and addicted to this high, which is way beyond your control. And you know deep down that this person may not be treating you right, or they may be wrong for you. Sometimes this happens with a toxic ex. If you've left that relationship and yet you're still thinking about them all the time and you can't really explain why, even though you know you weren't treated right, it's most likely that you are trauma bonded. If you haven't been to my page before, on this channel I talk about personal development, mental and emotional well-being, and just day-to-day issues. So please do subscribe to my channel so that you're up to date with all my upcoming content. Trauma bonding is a video that I did before, and it was, are you in love or are you trauma bonded? And I feel like so many of you resonated with that, and so many people that messaged me since have spoken about being in these toxic relationships that they end up keep going back to. So I feel like it's a topic that not many of us know of or understand what it means. But the minute we do, it all starts making sense. And when we reflect and look back at things, you really understand why you tolerated some of the things that you did. Because in this video, we're going to look at how these trauma bonds get formed in the first place, how this is not your fault, and how to move away and break out of your trauma bonds so that it doesn't affect your future relationships. Because once you've been trauma bonded, you are then continuously attracted to the same kind of partners, because that's the only way that you know love to be. This is why it stems down to childhood. If you had a parent that was hot and cold, for some, it may be for reasons beyond their control, or it may be just that they weren't really a very attentive, present parent, that may have affected you to have this sort of constant need to hold on to the little bit of appreciation, acknowledgement, or love that you received from that parent, so that you constantly look to please and appease and get that love back. So every time it was the low, you knew that you had to do something and win people or that parent over for them to then give you that little bit of love back. So you're incredibly receptive to relationships like that. You have this tolerance for it because you feel like that is what love is. That's how you've been conditioned to believe love to be. So when you're with a very toxic partner or an emotional abuser, and they go through these patterns of making up, breaking up, making up, breaking up, to you, that making up satisfaction is what love is. You kind of search for it, and it makes you feel very loved and very secure in it, because that's when you get the attention from them. But that attention is so intoxicating because you have such a rush of hormones released in your brain because you've been seeking it. You've been feeling so low, you've been feeling so deprived, that you had the stress hormone release, so now you need the high. That when it comes, you can't walk away. You need that from that person. So let's break it down to the science of it. The reason trauma bonds get formed is because when you fall in love and everything's happy and shiny and glorious, and your partner's amazing, and you feel all the butterflies, your brain produces a chemical called oxytocin, and this chemical then makes you seek more of the things that make you feel good, because usually when things make you feel good, they are good for you, but not in all cases. And this is when things like addiction and stuff come into it, because it makes you feel good, but it's not necessarily good for you. This is what happens with a trauma bonded relationship. It makes you feel good, but it's not necessarily good for you. So when you start feeling these feelings and you're falling in love and you're feeling amazing, you are then associating this person with someone that you feel safe with, you love, you turn to for support, for love, affection, and all the rest of it. Now, what happens when your partner is a narcissist or an emotional abuser? They use this they give you all the fun and amazing things. Like in my previous video, I mentioned about love bombing. So when they're trying to win you over, or they're with you and it's through a good phase, they're amazing. It's a lot of grand gestures and a lot of love and intoxicating feelings and all the rest of it. The minute they have you and they know that your guard's let down, they then switch it up. They withhold that affection and love because they need to get control over you. They need to kind of break you a little bit. So of course, when your partner has been showering you with love and affection, they suddenly withhold that, you become very confused. You don't know what's going on. Why is there such a sudden change? So your brain releases the stress hormone, cortisol, to try and help you deal with that. And so you're feeling very low. You're feeling anxious, you're depressed, you're confused, your self-worth is at question, you start questioning yourself, you're self-doubting, and so you start seeking the high again because you're feeling so low. The difference is that when someone that you love treats you like this, you become trauma bonded to them, but a stranger doesn't. You don't become trauma bonded to people you don't care about, because you associate your partner with love and affection and all the goodness. So when this same person is now the perpetrator of your pain, they're making you feel uneasy, they're making you feel on edge, they're making you feel anxious, you are so confused and you don't know what's going on. Because you seek for comfort from the same person who's your abuser, because they are your loved one, this is where the bond develops, because you keep running back to the person who's inflicting the pain on you. A little bit like the Stockholm Syndrome, where you fall in love with your captor or you become infatuated with your captor. Because this partner of yours is both associated with your love and your pain. A stranger isn't. They're not associated with your love. So if they're being mean to you, withhold anything, it doesn't make a difference to you. It doesn't confuse your brain, and your brain doesn't release these hormones. But when it comes from a loved one, you have to develop coping mechanisms because there's no getting rid of them. So what happens here is that you become extremely confused and extremely emotionally unbalanced. So you keep going back to the abuser to get validation, to get self-worth back. This is the person who loves you and supposed to make you feel better. And this may happen in a very subtle way. When I say emotional abuse, it doesn't mean that they're physically hit you, they're aggressive, they're shouting at you, they're screaming at you. No. If you feel uneasy around your partner without having to even explain what it is that's making you feel uneasy, that's already creating trauma bonds in you. Because there are things that you may not necessarily make sense out of with your logical mind. It doesn't mean that your body and energy doesn't pick up the unsettledness and uneasiness. It could come as very backhanded compliments. It could come as snidey comments. It could come as just general, little bit of negligence, a little bit of being cold shoulder here and there. So because you are not completely loved, you're not reassured, you're not made feel comfortable, safe and secure, this triggers back to your childhood and things that you've been conditioned to believe. So when you see that pattern of behavior again, straight away you are then conditioned to react to it in a certain manner, because you know how this goes. You know that you have to do certain things and run back to it and try and work at it and try and fix yourself to win this person over, because that's what you've been conditioned to do since you've been young. So you start seeking for things and you start self-doubting, and it becomes incredibly difficult emotionally and mentally for you to navigate the relationship and understand that it's not healthy. Because the high is so intense, those hormones are doing all sorts in your head, you need this person, you feel like this is what love's supposed to be, that when you get into more healthier relationships and the ones that are more steady and don't have this up and down, high and low, you don't really know, you don't see it as love, you find it boring, you almost seek the drama because you need that drama to feel love. That becomes your incentive and that becomes your goal. You look out for it, because when the fight is that toxic, then the making up is that intoxicating. It kind of balances out. And that's the only way that you know love. This is why you will end up getting with the same kind of partners. So my age-old saying that I always say, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. If you're going to go for the same kind of people, you're going to get the same sort of outcomes. So the issue isn't here for them to change and suddenly, so you feel like by loving them into it, by repeatedly changing yourself, by catering to them, they will see that and suddenly wake up being very loving and a new person towards you. But it's not them who needs to make the change, it's you. If you're in a trauma-bonded relationship, nobody else can come and rescue you from this. And the other person who is the abuser and who is inflicting this on you isn't going to wake up and change. So the sooner you understand that, the sooner you will realize that the person that has to change in this has to be you. If you want this to end, you want to break out of your trauma bond, you have to make those changes. You have to look inside and see what is it that feels so empty inside you that you need to fill it in with this drama. Why is it that when someone gives you calm, steady love, it's not enough for you? Why is it that you seek that high? What's making you feel so low that the only way to make you feel rebalanced is to go to an extreme high? Look inside and figure that out before getting into anything else with anyone else, because you will attract the same kind of partners again. And the more you go through these motions, the more those feelings and those reactions will become reinforced in you and a part of your temperament and personality, because the more you practice something, the more it becomes second nature. Your brain associates that entire cycle with love, not just the loving part. So the way your brain digests this information and this experience is that from start to finish, from the cold to the hot to the cold again, is what love is. So that's why you think that the whole process is out of love. Them being mean to you and fighting with you is because they care for me. If they didn't care, they wouldn't be fighting for me. But that's not usually the case. Not everything should be a fight. And you guys should only fight on things that you both want to work on, and so you're finding solutions, not breaking each other down, dissing each other's characters, being disrespectful. No, that's not them caring about you and fighting for the relationship. That's them just being a toxic person. So in order for you to break these trauma bonds, there are certain things that you need to actively do to break out of these habits. And you need to take action. But not only that, by you watching this video, you already started the process. Understanding the process is a big part of it, because then you know how to cope with it. And the first thing to do is to understand that the change has to come from you. The second thing to address is the void in your life that's making this drama and fear of loneliness so scary for you, and so addictive for you. There's clearly something that's missing and it's not right, so you need to address that and figure out why. And as for the loneliness, like, you keep going back to this person is because that's your source of love. When you're in a relationship with an abuser, they tend to isolate you because then they can practice their abuse a lot more freely with you and there's no one to tell you otherwise. So if you feel like you don't have friends, having a good group of friends for you to break trauma bonds is incredibly important, because is the fear that keeps you going back, and is the fear of the loneliness. So if you have a group of people around you, or one or two friends that you truly trust, truly can speak to, be very open and not be ashamed of telling them how it really is important. And if you think that I don't have any friends and I can't do this, then make those friends now, because you know that you need to break this trauma bond. And in order to do that, find some friends, or make the effort, stop isolating yourself and stop allowing your partner to isolate you, because they're doing that. That's also a manipulation technique, and they're trying to corner you. So in order for you to break out of this trauma bond, you have got to form some friends and start relying on them, and make sure that you're feeling the void of loneliness, so that you don't run back to this abuser every time you have the power to walk away. But also, if you really don't want to leave because of how you feel for this person, and your partner also genuinely loves you and wants to make it work, but you both have trauma bonded to each other, then there are ways again to manage and handle that. Just because you start spending time with friends or looking for friends and advice doesn't mean that you're going to leave them. It just means that you're getting your needs met elsewhere, so that this relationship isn't your be-all and end-all. So that you don't put such an emphasis and such a pressure from this relationship to deliver everything to you. If you have friends and you have people that give you love and attention, then it takes off that pressure of your partner, and so the relationship has room to grow. The fear of making up and breaking up is what really causes trauma bonds in relationships. So if you both want to make this work and genuinely believe that you can address it and work on it, and you're both on the same page, because this will only work if you both agree and understand that you can't continue fighting like this because you love each other and this is it for you. Then there are ways of communicating to really avoid this fear that stands over you guys, that we might break up and never get back together. So you both are using that as ammunition to scare each other away. So you both need to make a pact and seriously have a conversation and agree that despite what happens, that's not going to come into it, that's not an option, we're going to resolve and talk about things. So to use that energy wisely, so instead of the both of you looking forward to for that little high after a fight where you make up and that's what you look forward to and that's what really brings you into a bond, then it's important for you guys to sit and really set goals for peace, for connection, for growth, and work towards them, and get your high and satisfaction not from a make-up after a fight, but from mutual growth, mutual building, mutual connection, mutually doing things, positive things. Use the energy wisely and stop looking for that high from the make-up, and remove this threat of breaking up over your heads. Then it just eases off that feeling of, I can't lose them, I need them back, I need to fight for it. It becomes less volatile for you. But if you're in a trauma bond that you know that you're not really loved, and this person is truly narcissistic and toxic towards you, then the best thing to do is to find that support system amongst friends, and to make your exit very quietly, very intentionally, and drama-free. Because with someone like that, there's no winning, there's no explanation, there's no closure. You just need to leave. You need to cut the bond off when you know that is toxic for you. Remember, you deserve to be loved, you deserve to be respected, and you deserve to be in a healthy, happy relationship. If anyone makes you feel otherwise, then they don't need to be a part of your life. Like I said, when you're in abusive relationships, the abuse doesn't always come very blatantly in your face. It could happen in very minor ways and things that just make you feel uneasy and you can't explain why. So if you really feel like that and you feel that you're bonded and you can't leave this person, then you deserve to heal, you deserve to break this bond, you deserve to get yourself as far away as possible, and you deserve to start your journey and build healthier and happier relationships with people who truly treat you the way that you should be treated. So I hope that you found this video helpful. Like I said, trauma bonding is something that I wasn't that aware of before I started these videos, and I kind of couldn't make sense of some of the relationships that formed in my life. But ever since understanding this pattern and addressing what I was lacking myself, I saw a real change in the people that I attracted around me, because I understood what was missing and what I really needed, not what just felt good. And so it does begin from you. It all starts from here. So the minute you look inside and start working on yourself and healing, you will start dating and finding different people and friends that are more suited to your energy and vibe and authentic self. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so that you're up to date with all my upcoming content. Please like and comment on this video, and I will see you guys here again next week. Thank you for watching. Mwah.